James Benjamin Blish was an American author of fantasy and science fiction. Blish also wrote literary criticism of science fiction using the pen name William Atheling, Jr. Early life. Blish was born at East Orange, New Jersey. Career. In the late 1930s to the early 1940s, Blish was a member of the Futurians. He broke into science fiction print with 2 stories published by Frederick Pohl in Super Science Stories, Emergency Refueling, in March and Bequest of the Angel, in May 1940. ISFDB catalogs 10 more stories published during 1941 and 1942, but only 2 in the next 5 years. Blish trained as a biologist at Rutgers and Columbia University, and spent 1942 to 1944 as a medical technician in the United States Army. After the war he became the science editor for the Pfizer pharmaceutical company. His writing career progressed until he gave up his job to become a professional writer. He is credited with coining the term gas giant in the story Solar Plexus as it appeared in the anthology Beyond Humankind, edited by Judith Merrill. From 1962 to 1968, Blish worked for the Tobacco Institute. Between 1967 and his death in 1975, Blish wrote authorized short story collections based upon the 1960s TV series Star Trek. He wrote 11 volumes adapting episodes of the series. He died midway through writing Star Trek 12. His second wife, J.A. Lawrence, completed the book, and later completed the adaptations in the volume Mud's Angels. In 1970 he wrote Spock Must Die, the first original novel for adult readers based upon the series. The archive of Blish's books and papers is deposited at the Bodleian Library in Oxford. Blish is buried in Holywell Cemetery, Oxford. Works. Cities in Flight. Perhaps Blish's most famous works were the Okies stories, known collectively as Cities in Flight, published in the Science Fiction Digest magazine Astounding Science Fiction. The framework for these was set in the first of 4 novels, They Shall Have Stars, which introduces 2 essential features of the series. The first is the invention of the anti-aging drug ascomycin. Blish's employer of Pfizer makes a thinly disguised appearance as Fitzner in a section, showing the screening of biological samples for interesting activity. The second is the development of an anti-gravity device known as the spin dizzy, since the device becomes more efficient when used to propel larger objects. Entire cities leave an Earth in decline and rove the stars, looking for work among less industrialized systems. The long life provided by ascomycin is necessary because the journeys between stars are time-consuming. They Shall Have Stars is dystopian science fiction of a type common in the era of McCarthyism, and even includes a villain who is a cross between J. Edgar Hoover and McCarthy, and named Machinery. The second, A Life for the Stars, is a coming-of-age story set amid flying cities. The third, Earthman, Come Home, is a series of loosely connected short stories detailing the adventures of a flying New York City. The title piece was selected as one of the best novellas prior to 1965 by the Science Fiction Writers of America and included in the Science Fiction Hall of Fame, Volume 2. For his 4th and final installment, The Triumph of Time, Blish set the end of his literature's universe in AD 4004. A film version of Cities in Flight was in pre-production by Space Films in 1979, but never materialized. The Hartle Scholium this term describes the background of a number of Blish's science fiction short stories. Three distinct technologies, their invention and consequences are outlined. There is some overlap between the city's in-flight saga and that of the seedling stars, mainly through one piece of technology, the Dirac radio. Another unifying concept is the first transluminal drive, the Hartle overdrive. Adolf Hartle developed the drive in order to reach Mars rapidly. Hartle cosmology, the result of Hartle's science, in Blish's words, swallowed Einstein the way Einstein swallowed Newton, that is to say, alive. Hartle goes on to develop the drive to allow the entry of men into interstellar space. The DFC-3, piloted by Garrard, reaches Alpha Centauri, where extraterrestrial first contact is made with the Clinestitan Bidamung. The drive at this stage is not well developed, and initially suffers from dramatic chrono swings from almost complete time freeze to the hypertime of pseudo-death. Proposed clarification: the traveler experiences thoughts and sensations, subjective time, at a rate which disagrees radically from that of ship and physiology. With refinement, the drive becomes a valid method of interstellar travel, though not without mishap and adventure as other forms of travel are tried, such as the near-useless UP drive. Refinement of the drive allows the exploration of the near stars, as well as the Coalsack Nebula, wherein the beings known as angels are first encountered by the hero Jack Loftus, Sylvia McCrary and Dr. Challenger, as well as a long-lived and powerful civilization, the hegemony of Marlus, ultimately deduction, and a first-hand experience of a planet deliberately maintained in a state of genocidal savagery, coupled with expert reasoning, reveals that the hegemony is malignant, and humanity rebels. Mission to the Heart Stars reveals the true nature of the hegemony, and with the help of a stowaway angel, Hesperus, humanity is freed of its bondage, and made companions of the angels. The stories considered part of the Hartle scholium include A Case of Conscience and the Pantropy series. Both are anomalous in that they do not appear to have the Dirac radio, though it is plausible to assume that A Case of Conscience takes place before the development of the Dirac. A unifying force of galactic civilization is the Dirac radio, developed by Dr. Thor Wall. This radio is able to permit faster than light radio transmission. It has an additional and unsettling ability. Within every transmission is the sum total of all transmissions from the device, throughout all of time and space. The Department of Intelligence, headed by Captain Robert Weinbaum, and aided by the beautiful video reporter Dana L.J., make this shattering discovery. 300 years later, the service is the dominant government of the galaxy, and Dirac is the center of the power, with a network built from Hartle overdrive space lanes. 4,000 years in the future, human civilization has met its first full antagonist, the Green Exarchy, a system of many civilizations ruled by a non-human emperor. The Green Exarch. This represents a significant threat to High Earth. The Green Exarch as it is employ the extremely dangerous shape-shifting agents known as Vombus, who will appear human, but do not revert to their true shape when killed, giving them an air of great mystery and menace. The Hartle overdrive is now called the Imaginary Drive, and a Dirac is still in common use. High Earth remains the center of human civilization. The civilization is remarkably advanced. For all practical intents, humans are now immortal. A memory cleanse known as baptism permits those filled with ennui to begin lives anew, though there are side effects from subconscious recall. A quasi-religious group known as Sagittarians also play a part. The most important financial force in the empire of High earth is the Traitors' Guild, who permit money to flow from system to system in reward of treachery to system governments, producing a feudatory system between worlds, though not at the expense of internal stability. Traitors skillfully employ advanced biotechnology to further their aims, and are known to employ fungal cytotoxins, DNA reverse transcription mutation agents, as well as technology to petrify dead bodies in order to make up wall fortifications in far-off world planets. The Traitors' Guild may be found on all planets. 5,000 years later still, human civilization has gone through many rebirths, or renaissances. The chance infusion of a mentality from 1949 through a freak combination of the active mode of the Dirac within a radio telescope results in the formation, after many adventures and an ultimate resurgence of man, the Quint, the autarch of rebirth V. A computer of this far future time uses the Dirac as both a means of communication and infinite memory storage. Its existence was foretold at the time of Captain Weinbaum, though no one could interpret its messages then. After such knowledge, Blish declared that another group of novels was a trilogy, each dealing with an aspect of the price of knowledge, and given the overall name of After Such Knowledge. The first published, A Case of Conscience, showed a Jesuit priest confronted with an alien intelligent race, apparently unfallen, which he eventually concludes must be a satanic fabrication. The second, Dr. Mirabolis, is a historical novel about the medieval proto-scientist Roger Bacon. The third, consisting of two very short novels, Black Easter and The Day After Judgment, was written using the assumption that the ritual magic for summoning demons as described in grimoires actually worked. In Black Easter, a powerful industrialist and arms merchant arranges to call up demons and set them free in the world for a night, resulting in nuclear war and the destruction of civilization. The Day After Judgment is devoted to exploring the military and theological consequences. The Seedling Stars, Blish's most famous short stories are the Pantropy tales collected in the book The Seedling Stars. In these stories, humans are modified to live in various alien environments, this being easier and vastly cheaper than terraforming. Book 1 is about the inception of Pantropy, when the Pantropy program appears to have deteriorated into hideous genetic experimenting and has been outlawed. It describes Sweeney, a modified human whose metabolism is based on liquid ammonia and sulfur bonds and whose bones are made from ice IV, who is inserted into a colony on Ganymede by the Terran Port Authority to capture a renegade scientist and end his plans to seed modified humans on distant worlds. However, the government really only tries to derail Pantropy because it will cut the profits from terraforming attempts. Sweeney is surprised to find a well-established, functioning community on Ganymede and eventually realizes that he was just used as an expendable agent and that he has been fed false hopes about the possibility of being changed into a normal human being who could live on Earth. Having found a real home, he switches sides and with his help the Ganymede colony manages to launch the seed ships to secret destinations, beyond the reach of the corrupt government. Book 2 depicts a very successful seeding project. It tells the story of a small group of intellectuals from a primitive culture of modified monkey-like humans living in the trees of the jungle world, having openly voiced the opinion that the godly giants do not literally exist as put down in the Book of Laws. They are banished from the treetops for heresy. In their exile on the ground they have to adapt to vastly different circumstances, fight monsters resembling dinosaurs, and finally happen upon the godly giants, who turn out to be human scientists who have just arrived on the world to monitor the progress of the local adapted humans. The protagonists are told by the scientists that the whole race must eventually leave the treetops to conquer the world, and that they have become pioneers of some sort for accomplishing survival. Book 3 gives another example of a culture of adapted humans. A Pantropy starship crashes on an ocean world hydro, which is on orbit around Tau Ceti. With no hope for rescue, the few survivors modify their own genetic material to seed microscopic aquatic humans into the lakes and puddles of the world and leave the message engraved on equally scaled metal plates. The story then tells how over many seasons, the adapted human newcomers explore their aquatic environment, make alliances, invent tools, fight wars with hostile beings, and finally gain dominance over the sentient beings of the world. They develop new technologies and manage to decipher some of the message on the metal plates. Finally, they build a wooden spaceship to overcome the surface tension and travel to other worlds, the next puddle, in search of their ancestry, as they have come to realize that they are not native to the world. Book 4 takes a look at the more distant future, a very long time after the beginning of the Pantropy program. A starship crewed by standard humans is en route to some unimportant backwater planet to deliver a Pantropy team who are adapted humans, resembling seals more than humans. Due to racial prejudices, tension mounts between the crew and the passengers on board. When the captain decides to restrict the passengers to the cabins to prevent the situation from escalating, the leader of the adapted humans informs him that the planet ahead is Earth, where the normal human form once developed. He challenges the normal humans to follow him onto the surface of their ancestral home planet and prove that they are superior to the adapted seal people who will now be seeded there, or admit that they were beaten on their own grounds. The story concludes as the captain and his lieutenant silently ponder the possibility that they, being standard humans, are just a minority, and an obsolete species. Watershed makes reference to the planet Lithia, which is the centerpiece of A Case of Conscience, and it must be assumed that the Pantropy stories take place in a slightly different universe, given the respective fates of the planet within each universe. Other Blish collaborated with Norman L. Knight on a series of stories set in a world with a population of 1,000 times that of today, and followed the efforts of those keeping the system running, collected in one volume as a torrent of faces. Included in this collection is Blish's Nebula-nominated novella The Shipwrecked Hotel, a story about a semi-submerged hotel with approximately 1 million guests which experiences a massive computer failure and begins to sink. Running parallel to all the side plots is the inevitable catastrophe of the mile-wide asteroid Flavia striking Canada. The stories are also notable for including a form of Pantropy that has been used to modify humans into a sea-dwelling form known as Tritons. Selected bibliography. Cities in Flight. They Shall Have Stars. A Life for the Stars. Earthman Come Home. The Triumph of Time. A one-volume collection of all 4 Cities in Flight books exists, first published in the United States by Avon, and later in the UK by Arrow, which includes an analysis of the work as an afterword by Richard D. Mullen, derived from an original article by Leland Shapiro in the publication Riverside Quarterly. It is now available in hardcover and trade paperback from Overlook Press. Outside the United States, a single-volume collecting all 4 books is available from Gollancz as part of its SF Masterworks series. This edition includes a new introduction by Stephen Baxter, and uses the original United States title The Triumph of Time for A Clash of Symbols. The first 2 were also collected as Cities in Flight Volume 1 and the second 2 as Cities in Flight Volume 2. After Such Knowledge, A Case of Conscience, included in American Science Fiction. 9 Classic Novels of the 1950s, Library of America 2012. Dr. Mirabolis, about Roger Bacon. Black Easter, The Day After Judgment. The Devil's Day collects Black Easter and the Day After Judgment. After Such Knowledge, the Hartle-Scolium Galactic Cluster, containing among others Beep, Common Time, and Nor Iron Bars. The book version of the last story combines Detour to the Stars and Nor Iron Bars. The 1960 UK hardback removes 3 stories from the Signet edition and adds Beanstalk. The 1963 UK paperback edition removes 3 stories from the Signet edition. The 1980 UK paperback uses the 1963 contents and adds Beanstalk. So Close to Home, The Star Dwellers, Mission to the Heart Stars, a sequel to The Star Dwellers. Welcome to Mars, Dolph Hartle's seminal First Flight to Mars. Anyone contains among others the novella A Traitor of Quality and the short story A Dusk of Idols. The 1971 UK edition removes the preface and adds a short story, Sky Sign. Midsummer Century, The Far Future, At the Time of Rebirth v. A Case of Conscience, technically part of the Scolium, thanks to presence of the Drive. Other stories, There Shall Be No Darkness, horror short story where guests at a remote country estate discover that one of them is a werewolf. This was filmed as The Beast Must Die. The Warriors of Day, Jack of Eagles, Get Out of My Sky, Fallen Star, set in the International Geophysical Year of 1958. It tells the story of a disaster-ridden polar expedition that finds a meteorite containing fossil life forms. Vor, Thrilling Wonder Stories, February 1949. Titan's Daughter, The Night Shapes, The Duplicated Man, A Torrent of Faces, The Vanished Jet, and All the Stars a Stage. The Quincunx of Time expansion of Beep. Star Trek collections of adaptations of the scripts of the well-known TV series. Star Trek II, Star Trek III, Spock Must Die, the first Star Trek novel for an adult audience. Star Trek IV, Star Trek V, Star Trek VI, Star Trek VII, Star Trek VIII, Star Trek IX, Star Trek X, Star Trek XI, Star Trek XII, Star Trek The Classic Episodes 1, Star Trek The Classic Episodes 2, Star Trek The Classic Episodes 3. Other collections The Seedling Stars. Best Science Fiction Stories of James Blish. A Work of Art and Other Stories. A Dusk of Idols and Other Stories. Works of Art NESFA. Flights of Eagles. Anthologies New Dreams This Morning. Nebula Award Stories No. 5. 13 o'clock and Other 0 Hours. Non-fiction. Blish wrote criticism of science fiction, some quite scathing, under the name of William Atheling, Jr., as well as reviewing under his own name. The Atheling articles were reprinted in 2 collections, The Issue at Hand and More Issues at Hand, and the posthumous The Tail That Wags the God. 1987 collects Blish essays. He was a fan of the works of James Branch Cabell, and for a time edited Kalki, the Journal of the Cabell Society. Reviewing The Issue at Hand, Algis Budrys described Atheling as acidulous, assertive, categorical, conscientious and occasionally idiosyncratic. Honors, awards and recognition. Soon after his death there was a 1976 BSFA Special Award to Blish for Best British SF. The British Science Fiction Foundation inaugurated the James Blish Award for SF Criticism in 1977, recognising Brian W. Aldiss, but it then lapsed for lack of funds. The Science Fiction and Fantasy Hall of Fame inducted him in 2002. 1959 Hugo Award for A Case of Conscience, Best Novel. 1960 Guest of Honor, World Science Fiction Convention. 1965 Nebula Award nomination for The Shipwrecked Hotel. Best Novelette. 1968 Nebula Award nomination for Black Easter. Best Novel. 1969 Hugo Award nomination for We All Die Naked. Best Novella. 1970 Nebula Award nomination for A Style in Treason. Best Novella. 1970 Guest of Honor, British EasterCon. 1950 2001 Retro Hugo Award nomination for Oki. Best Novelette. 1953 2004 Retro Hugo Award for Earthman Come Home. Best Novelette. 1953 2004 Retro Hugo Award for A Case of Conscience. Best Novella.